Hey guys, welcome to AB Florida Gardening. We garden in the Zone 9B in Florida, close to the Gulf Coast. We are starting to get warmer weather. It is March and my tomatoes have flopped over after we've had a pretty bad storm with a nice cold front last weekend. So that needed to get addressed right away. And I'm going to show you how I built my trellises. Take the occasion and just build one with you, and then show you how you can hold up tomatoes with a string. This might be a good option for you. So I've had a lot of questions on how I built those trellises, and I figured why not show you. Since I already built a few of these last year, I figured why not just measure what I already have. So 7 high, and the width was about 41.5 inches. All my raised beds are 8 by 4 minus the thickness of the board. I bought 8 by 2s, so I just measured 7 feet, and I'm gonna cut 1 foot off. By the way, I love this wireless Ryobi saw. It's been such a help for so many other projects. On to the next one again. I measure 7 feet. And I use an angle to make sure that I have a straight cut. The last piece I have to cut here is the piece that goes between the two 7-foot pieces, so it makes kind of like a U shape. Now I'm going to adjust the angle of the saw to 45 degrees. To make some cross brackets to give the whole U shape a little bit more stability. I try not to let anything go to waste, so I'm using the 1-foot pieces that were left over from the first 2 cuts for these brackets. Now let's speed this up. The first piece is done. This is what it looks like. We're going to need a second one for the second corner. What I'm doing here might look a little bit strange, so I'm deducting the thickness of the 2 by 4 from the long 7-foot piece. I'm doing this because I want to keep my options open. Maybe at some point I will build a rectangle that climbers then can grow up on the trellis, over the trellis, and back down on the other side. So this will give space for it to be connected and have a smooth finish. I tried to make my life a little bit easier and pre-drill holes. So these screws will go in to the board at an angle, and that way they kind of disappear. Now for all you woodworkers out there, there's a special tool for it, and if you have it, this would be a good time to use it. There are also other tools that might come in handy, like clamps, etc., that I could be using on this project, but this is such a easy thing to do, and it's just going to be out and open to the elements, so this will work. Now to make sure that this stays good for a while, and we do get a lot of rain and we have a lot of humidity in Florida, I'm using exterior self-tapping screws. I bought 2-inch and 3-inch, and after measuring it out, I'm going with the 3-inch option. You might be able to start to see why I like Ryobi so much, because the batteries, you can just swap them through all the tools that you're using. Now it's time to connect the pieces. I'm doing 2 screws per board, and I'm doing this extra fast for you. I think now it's easier to see what I mean by U shape. Now those angles are a little bit unstable, so these brackets will secure them and give the whole build a whole lot more stability. I'll be using the 3-inch screws again. The length just makes the whole thing a little bit more sturdy. In addition to that, the mesh that I will be attaching will also give the whole build more stability. One thing I've learned building things on my own is that pre-tapping the screws into the wood before putting it into position does make the job easier. I'm using the 3/4 inch poultry net staples. They've worked really well for me in the past, so I'm just going to keep using them, plus there's a lot in the package. Now the mesh that I'm using is actually used for fencing. I bought it at Home Depot in a roll. I will have to use wire cutters a little bit later to adjust the width by 1 inch or so, but that's an easy task. So now I just go around the entire U-frame and I put a staple about every 2 to 3 inches, whichever you feel is most appropriate for your circumstance. I think at this point you get the gist of it. I like this fencing material because it is coated in PVC and it's really weather hardy and it will look good for a long time. So one of the last steps before finishing up tapping down the staples is to remove the material that I used from the roll of the fencing. This will make it easier for me to maneuver around the other side. As you may notice, I'm not running the mesh all the way to the bottom of this U-frame, and that is because I will bury some of it in the ground. Now you know how to build the trellis, and if you have any questions you can put them in the comments below and I will try to answer them as best as I can. We're now going to the tomato bed and are going to install this trellis. For that I am removing the soil just a little bit from each corner of the bed, and the footings that you saw earlier that I did not cover in mesh are going into those little holes and are going to get fastened with the same 3-inch outdoor screws that I used for the entire build. I'm adding one screw on one side first, and then I'm moving to the other side and installing one screw to come back after that and install a second set of screws on each side. This makes attaching it a whole lot easier because it is a little wobbly and I'm trying to keep it as level as possible. You're probably wondering if this is going to hold. After all, in Florida we do get quite some storms, and from my experience over the last year, yes it does, especially after the second set of screws is added. The first set, it looks a little bit wobbly, but after the second one goes in, it is quite safe. And since I'm out here, of course I couldn't resist this beautiful looking radish. It's gonna be my snack. Now to the last part of this build, and that is the beam to which we're attaching these hooks. I'm using the full length of this 8-foot board, and just 3 hooks will go in because I have 3 big tomato plants evenly spread apart, and it screws in super easy by hand, no tool needed. So this was easy enough. Now it's all done and it's going to get attached to the top of the trellises. Getting this to go over the full 8-foot length of the raised garden bed was a little tricky. If you do have someone that can help you with this, it is a good time to get a second set of hands. Two screws are going into each side. I'm using the same 3-inch screws that I used throughout the entire project. Outdoor screws that don't rust. That's the best way to go here in this humidity. You probably think, are we done yet? And I want to say yes, we are. The only very last step that's left is the string, and that is very simple. I am using a biodegradable string. Basically just put a knot at the top, put it on a hook. I'm using landscape fabric staples to then anchor it into the ground. Oh boy, do they look sad, but the string will give them some stability, and I am very happy with how everything turned out. It's been up for a couple of days now, and this has really worked well. Now ideally you would install this when your plants are just young little babies and slowly train them up the string. In this case, I basically used the string and carefully fiddled it between the leaves and try not to upset the plant too much. Alright my friends, well this is it. If you have any question, like I said earlier, just put them in the comments and I try to get to them and answer them as best as possible. If you like this video, if you like the content I create, then follow me and hit that like and subscribe button. You can also find additional content that I create on TikTok and on my Instagram account under the same name. If you have ideas or questions, things that you would like me to maybe show you, then please let me know. Till next time, happy gardening.